McCall says the surveillance video from that Sunset Valley FedEx store may show the suspect, and that is critical because this bomber is on a rapid clip. Consider that Unabomber Ted Kaczynski was behind 16 bombs over 18 years. Texas has now seen 7 bombs in 18 days, and the rate of attack is starting to accelerate. I mean, you talked about this, Sean. The first explosion March 2nd, a package bomb killed a 39-year-old man. The second, 10 days later, on March 12th, another package bomb that killed a 17-year-old boy. And then the surveillance video from that Sunset Valley FedEx store. The explosive devices themselves have been different. Geraldo talked about that tripwire. But investigators believe the bombings are linked, though the motive remains unclear and a certain pattern has yet to be determined. But if we showed you a map, the first 2 bombs went off in East Austin. The next explosion happened in Northeast Austin. And now you have 2 explosions in Southwest Austin, which pretty means the city has been surrounded. The first 4 victims were black and Hispanic, leading police to initially consider this a hate crime. But the next 2 victims were white, and we still do not yet know the ethnicity of the latest victim. You talk about the residents being on edge. In 24 hours, Austin police got 420 suspicious package calls. They've gotten more than 1,200 in the past week. 19 days in, still no message from the bomber. But now we find that a Goodwill store in the southeast part of Austin, Texas, may have more than 1, maybe 2 explosive devices there, Sean.
Trace, stay right there. We go back to Geraldo, who has more news that is developing with this new explosion in Austin. Geraldo.
Breaking news, Sean. Breaking news. As the helicopters are overhead, the Austin Police Department have just tweeted out, quote, there was no package explosion in the 900 block of the 9,800 block of Brody Lane. Items inside the package were not a bomb, rather an incendiary device. I repeat, an incendiary device. At this time, they have no reason to believe that this incident, the incendiary device, is related to the previous package bombs. So I am very, you know, I don't understand it. Could this be a second attacker, a second bomber, this one with an incendiary device?
How do we interpret what an incendiary device is? What does that mean?
Well, I would imagine like a flare or, you know, something like a firework, some kind of, you know, more flame than bang. An explosion is an incendiary device in a closed container that explodes because there's no place for the energy to go. An incendiary device is more, we're efforting more specifics on exactly what the incendiary device consisted of. Hopefully the Austin Police Department will give us some guidance, but clearly there was some kind of, you know, maybe the person was burned rather than blown, you know, injured in terms of the explosion. Well, but I'm just quoting from the police. It's an incendiary device, not a package explosion, Sean.
Okay, Geraldo, stay right there. We'll get back to you. But to remind our audience here, the entire city of Austin is on edge. Earlier today, 2 packages located at 2 separate FedEx facilities in and around Austin and San Antonio, literally connected, that they have connected earlier today to these previous bombings. So we definitely have a serial bomber on the loose here. We'll go back to our video here and just take a look. You can see the entire city of Austin on edge tonight. Joining us now, NRA TV contributor, former Secret Service agent Dan Bongino, former FBI Special Agent Manny Gomez, Fox News National Security Strategist Sebastian Gorka, former D.C. police detective Ted Williams. I'll start with you, Dan Bongino. I had the opportunity, a guy that literally worked, Terry Touche is his name, former Deputy Assistant Director, Counterterrorism Division, FBI. He, for 18 years, tracked down the serial bomber known as the Unabomber, and literally he was able to get the information. It came from the public. And by getting out his manifesto, that resulted in the guy's own brother, the Unabomber's own brother, giving him up, which, again, 18 years is certainly a long time. It shows how important the public is in this equation. Dan Bongino.
Yes, Sean, the public's going to be very important, but we have a couple advantages now we didn't have in 1996 when the Unabomber got caught as well. DNA technology has gone revolutionary since then. We had it back then, but it's advanced along with the library of samples as well to compare them to. Number two, ubiquitous cameras. Cameras were not everywhere in 1996 or in the 90s. Of course, they were around, but they weren't like they are now, whether it's cell phone cameras or inside surveillance cameras. Working against us, though, Sean, on the downside, I'm not sure this is one person. I mean, this seems to be a very complicated scheme, and I don't know how many bombs are still out there and are in the mail system based on what we've seen today.
By the way, I'm just looking up Dan Bongino because Geraldo's reporting an incendiary device. It's still a bomb to start a fire when you look it up, and that's just, you know, anyone can just go Google and see it. By the way, Dan, the president has spoken out. He's talking about the bombings in Austin are terrible. Local, state, federal enforcement are working hand in hand. Here is what the president said, speaking on this earlier today.
The bombings in Austin are terrible. Local, state, and federal are working hand in hand to get to the bottom of it. This is obviously a very, very sick individual, or maybe individuals. These are sick people, and we will get to the bottom of it. We will be very strong. We have all sorts of federal agencies over there right now. We're searching what's going on in Austin, a great place, tremendous place, is absolutely disgraceful.
Manny Gomez, let me ask you this. This is a very tough job for the FBI, Absolutely. But we have a couple of things that have happened. Today, with this tripwire, that makes a difference. What bomb experts have told me, and this FBI deputy assistant director of counterterrorism to the FBI, who spent 18 years on the Unabomber case, what he told me is every single bomber, serial bomber, has their own fingerprint. You usually, through forensics, are able and capable of determining if, in fact, it is from them. Is that possible an incendiary device could end up being him?
Well, the incendiary device that we just discovered a couple of minutes ago, actually, could be a copycat, but obviously it was done for nefarious reasons. What would an incendiary device be doing at a Goodwill store? And it could
Makes no sense, right?
Absolutely not. Could it be a copycat that doesn't have the sophistication of our serial bomber, but is trying to get in the game, if you will? Possibly. Could it be the serial bomber trying to try different methods? Possibly. The good news is that we have a device that hasn't been detonated.
Well, we have two, because one of the devices also from earlier today didn't go off, right?
Correct. So we have these devices that they're going to take to the ATF lab in Virginia, totally trace, totally take apart, see how they work. And like you said, they have a signature. And by that signature, they're going to learn how sophisticated is this device, and how could this person learn how to make this device. Was it taught in ordnance school in the military? Was it taught in law enforcement?
Listen, years ago, I read the Anarchist Cookbook. We put that on the air. Anything you want to learn is literally on the internet today, which should scare the living daylights out of anybody.
Absolutely.
Dr. Gorka, let me go to you. This is domestic terrorism we're talking about. I know we talk a lot about Islamic terrorism, but terrorism is terrorism. And this particular serial bomber is now terrorizing the state of Texas, and more specifically the city of Austin, and now the city of San Antonio is literally hanging on the edge as well.
Right, Sean. The bad news you've mentioned already. This is not difficult to do. Improvised explosive devices, the information's been out there from at least the 60s. With the rise of Al-Qaeda and ISIS, they made it even easier. If you look at the pressure cooker bomb recipe used in Boston, that came from jihadists posting that manual online. But here, the good news is, yes, usually a bomber has one device. They stick to it like the Unabomber. They get it right, whether it's a pipe bomb, whether it's ammonium and nitrate fertilizer, and they use that again and again and again. In this case, there's variety. There's a level of sophistication. I talked to an FBI counterterrorism division agent just now, and they said that there is an unusual level of variety. If these are all linked, especially if the incendiary device, the non-detonating incendiary device meant to cause a fire as opposed to shrapnel. If that's linked, that's a scale of knowledge we haven't seen before, and that will lead us to potentially identify the kind of individual behind it, or individuals, the skill sets they have. That narrows it down. But at the end of the day, Trace was absolutely right. An unusually high operational tempo. We very rarely see this. Outside of insurgencies, we very rarely see multiple attacks in just the space of a few weeks. So everybody's going to be working overtime in Austin. You know that, Sean.
Yeah, thank you, Sebastian. Stay right there with us as well. Joining us now, Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton is with us. Mr. Attorney General, thank you for being with us. I have so many friends down in Texas, even in the Austin area. Our prayers go out to you all. This is becoming a very precarious situation for everybody. You got 4 confirmed today. An incendiary device tonight at a Goodwill shop doesn't make a lot of sense to anybody. Your thoughts, sir?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on. Yeah, it's very difficult. This is totally unexpected in Austin. This is not the way our community operates. And I think people are in shock that we're having to deal with this in our state and the city of Austin. So we certainly appreciate the prayers and the support of the rest of the country.
Yeah, where are we in the investigation as far as, there any details you can give people? What about the idea that every serial bomber has his own signature or her own signature?
Well, first of all, I had the opportunity to meet with President Trump today and thank him for the 500 federal law enforcement officers that are out there helping us, including 400 FBI agents, 100 ATF officers. We obviously have our own state police, my office involved, and there's a lot of people looking for this guy. And I'm telling you, we're going to find this guy soon. And the fact that he has changed things up has made it a little more difficult, as your previous guest was talking about. It's pretty typical for them to have a signature, but in this case, he's changed things up and made it more difficult for us to figure out who he is.
Ted Williams, let me go to you. Your years as a detective, where are you tonight, especially in light of the 2 confirmed bombs that they had, and how valuable is the one that did not explode today?
Well, that bomb that did not explode today is very valuable because if they did explode it, there was a controlled explosion, so they can use that to gain evidence. I don't believe that maybe the one that just exploded, that the incendiary device, is probably a part of this. This very well could be a copycat. The guy who has put out these other 5 bombings, he is trying to kill people. The incendiary device this afternoon was just a distraction here. So you've got a murderer out there, and he's playing a cat and mouse game with law enforcement. He's trying to show them that he is smarter than them, so he can put out a bomb with a tripwire on one occasion, and other occasions he can drop a package out perhaps at a FedEx or at somebody's home. But I can tell you, as Dan Bongino said earlier, we've got more sophistication these days. We will catch this guy. I can unequivocally tell you that he's not the invisible man. If he's out there, there's some camera that will catch this guy. I can unequivocally tell you that.
Well said, Ted. And let me go to Geraldo. Geraldo, that was a point you were making. You're on the ground. You're right down the block from what we're witnessing here. You mentioned the fact there are cameras everywhere, Geraldo. It makes it a lot harder in this day and age.
I totally believe, Sean, that until this incident tonight, they were tightening the noose around the Austin serial bomber. There is, according to Mike McCall of the House Homeland Security Committee and other local officials, they not only have surveillance video that could possibly identify the person, but they also have confirmed that all of the incidents until this one tonight were linked, same perpetrator or perpetrators. Now this, identify yourself please, ma'am, and tell us where you live, and I understand you've been touched by this twice now.
Yes, my name is Sandy Orange. I live just right here, catty corner from the Goodwill that was hit today. I also work about 5 minutes away off McKinney Falls Parkway where the FedEx location is.
My goodness, that's two strikes. How do you feel in terms of, it's so random, anyone could be victimized by this person.
It is so random. We were at my daughter's school at a cheer meeting tonight when they announced the bombing and let us leave. It's hitting way too close to home and to work and to everyday life for everybody.
How has it affected your everyday life?
Until today, it really hasn't. I just pray that they would catch him, but now it's just, I mean, I just feel like it could be anybody. The person, you know, sitting next to you in a restaurant. I mean, you don't know. It's so close.
School violence in the news so much lately. Now this, how are you and your schoolmates responding?
It's just scary to know like things like this are happening, and after one thing leading to another, so many things are going on. So just reacting to it, we don't even know, like, you don't know if you're safe walking to school. I live so close to school that I'm able to walk home and I'm able to walk to school in the mornings, but it's like I have to watch my every move to see what's happening.
And how old are you?
15.
15 years old. So sad that you have all this harsh reality in your life. What do you tell your children?
I tell her that, you know, you just need to be super careful and vigilant and keep an eye out for everything around you. Just don't ever, you know, assume that everything is okay.
Well, let me ask you, what do you do now when a FedEx truck arrives at your house, or UPS or some other delivery?
I have packages that I've ordered, and I'm scared to death for them to come because I'm going to be scared. I wish I hadn't ordered the things that I've ordered because I know they're on their way, and it's, you know.
What will you do when that box is on your front step?
They've told us to call 911 and make sure that it is what it's supposed to be before we open it. So that's what I'm going to do.
So, Sean, you see how this is, I noticed that with Dr. Gorka, you mentioned terrorism and domestic terrorism. To me, the definition of terror is when the crime has no motive other than to frighten people, other than to unsettle society, other than to attack civilization. This is terrorism. It might not be Muslims. I don't know who's behind it. It might not be some militia or whatever. I don't know. All I know is that whoever is planting these, they are terrorists. They are evil terrorists, Sean.
All right, we're going to have more on this Austin serial bomber. We'll follow this news all throughout the hour. All right, we're going to start now with our breaking news opening monologue first. All right, in other news tonight, the president is slamming Hillary Clinton after she viciously attacked white female voters who pulled the lever for President Trump. Remember this. Take a look.
Her last statement about women. They have to get approval from their husbands, their sons, and their male bosses to vote for Trump. That was not a good statement. Not good. You notice how fast the Democrats have run from these statements now? They are disavowing those statements like I've never heard before. She's wrong. People that were her biggest supporters are now saying, what is she doing? Why doesn't she just go home? But that was not a good statement.
Very pathetic. Of course, Hillary Clinton can't stop talking and complaining about her stunning election defeat, blaming everybody. And she is once again attacking President Trump. Here's what she said in a recent interview. Pathetic. She needs to get over it.
He has undermined the office and used it to enrich himself and his family, disregarded laws, ethical standards. He's crossed into a territory of behavior and actions that are unpredictable, that are erratic, that are undermining the stability of the global order.
Pretty outrageous. Really, Hillary, you want to talk about enriching yourself? Did you forget about the $145 million that poured into your family foundation, Bill doubling his speaking fees in Russia as it relates to, oh, and given the speech from Vladimir Putin and the Uranium One scandal? I have some free advice for Hillary Clinton. You may want to stop talking. There's a lot of news coming in your direction. All right, also breaking tonight, huge news to tell you about Mr. Deep State himself, James Comey, and other corrupt government officials. They should be very worried tonight. Politico is reporting the House Judiciary Committee Chairman, Bob Goodlatte, he is now getting ready to issue a subpoena for documents that the DOJ Inspector General has about the corrupt FBI Clinton email investigation. 1.2 million documents. This is significant. because the Deputy Attorney General, Rod Rosenstein, well, he's doing everything within his power to not let the public, not let Devin Nunes and the House Intel Committee and the Judiciary Committee have access to this information. Now, the DOJ has been stonewalling congressional oversight every single step of the way. Now, why is that? Why doesn't Rod Rosenstein, why doesn't the Department of Justice want you, the American people, congressmen, it's their job to do oversight, to see all of the documents related to how poorly the Clinton email investigation was and what corruption may be underlying all of this? Now, it is because we've already known that the fix was in, that investigation was rigged. We know James Comey, Peter Strzok, Lisa Page, Andrew McCabe, and other people, senior FBI officials. Remember, they were writing Hillary's exoneration months before they interviewed her and 17 other witnesses. I don't know any investigation that is handled that way. So is there a smoking gun? Is there evidence they don't want you to see? I would assume the answer is yes. Now remember, Rod Rosenstein is the guy, he was begging Paul Ryan to stop Devin Nunes in Congress and the Intel Committee from getting the documents that showed severe FISA abuses. And of course, the Clinton bought and paid for dossier. It's Paul Ryan. He did not give in to Rosenstein. Otherwise, if he did, there would be no Nunes memo. There would not be a Grassley-Graham memo, and we would not know anything about the Clinton bought and paid for dossier that was used to lie to the FISA court. Remember, the DOJ, the FBI, they lied to that FISA judge, well, actually 4 judges, to get the warrant. And then, of course, the extensions to spy on Trump associate Carter Page and subsequently the entire Trump campaign. And Rosenstein, he's rotten to the core because he's tied into all of this. He is doing the bidding of deep state actors. Rosenstein actually signed one or more of those FISA applications in case of the renewal. And in other words, the bulk of them were made up of the dossier. What does Rosenstein have to hide here? Why is he protecting all of his friends? Why does he have all of these conflicts of interest? And how can he be the guy that appoints Mueller and involved in the investigation when he himself engaged in potential wrongdoing? Think about that. Now, why does the Attorney General, Jeff Sessions, he had to recuse himself? Rod Rosenstein, okay, he renewed the FISA application. He knew Hillary bought and paid for it. He knew the judges were being lied to. But then he gets to appoint his BFF, Robert Mueller, to be the special counsel. All of this is why we need a second special counsel. These people cannot investigate themselves. And as for those Clinton email records, the DOJ Inspector General, Michael Horowitz, remember, we're waiting on his report. He has gathered 2 million documents, some of which are all related to this corrupt email investigation and probe. And by the way, guess how many of the 1.2 million documents Congress has been able to see? Only 3,000. Now, that is 0.25%. Well, you call that stonewalling 101. That is the deep state desperately protecting the deep state. But unfortunately, there are some members of Congress who believe in their role in oversight. There are a few journalists who actually care about truth and justice and equal application under the law and the Constitution. People willing to put themselves out there and follow the truth, the facts, the evidence. All right, also brand new tonight, House Majority Leader Kevin McCarthy, House Majority Whip Steve Scalise, they are joining now the chorus that is now finally calling for what we have been calling for, the appointment of a second special counsel. The facts, the evidence of wrongdoing and lawbreaking are incontrovertible and overwhelming. Here is what Congressman McCarthy is saying. Let's take a look.
So we know that McCabe has lied by the independent inspector general found it, and now he's saying about Comey may have lied as well. So I don't think this is the end of it. But that is why we need a second special counsel. And I give Chairman Gowdy and Goodlatte a lot of credit and all those members. They sent that letter to Jeff Sessions. He is looking at it. But we need the ability, because an inspector general does not have subpoena power outside of the direction. So we need somebody to look at this, and not from the inside, because you can't trust what's happening right now.
Well said, Kevin McCarthy. And Congressman Scalise, he is out with a statement. It reads in part, the credibility of the Mueller investigation will be in doubt unless we get to the bottom of the many serious questions regarding the FBI's handling of their investigation of the Trump campaign, as well as their investigation, or lack thereof, into Hillary Clinton's negligent transmission of classified material over her unauthorized email server. That's why I agree with many others. That's why we need the appointment of an additional special counsel who, unlike Mueller, has the authority to look into potential abuses of the FISA system. That allowed the Democrat-funded Steele dossier. Oh, I thought foreigners weren't supposed to impact our elections with Russian lies. But anyway, to serve the basis for the initial FBI investigation. Congressman Scalise, Congressman McCarthy, Graham, of course, and Grassley, and Tillis, and Cornyn, they're all now saying what we've been saying. Now, this goes along with every single thing we've been trying to report to you. This is why this is needed, a second special counsel. Now, Robert Mueller, interestingly, he's best friends with James Comey, and he's buddies with Rod Rosenstein. He cannot be expected to honestly investigate scandals that his friends are directly involved in. Comey is at the very center as it relates to the Clinton email fix, rigging the investigation. And Comey said that the Clinton dossier was salacious and verified. He said that in January 2017 to then-President-elect Donald Trump at Trump Tower. But months before, in October 2016, he was using that same dossier, the one he said in January of 2017 is unverified and salacious, to get the warrant to spy on Trump associate Carter Page, and hence the Trump campaign. And then Rod Rosenstein, like Comey, he signed off on one or more of these FISA renewal applications. It is one massive, huge, deep state conflict of interest after another. Now, they're protecting themselves. They're trying to preserve their own power. We cannot allow this to happen if we want law and order to reign in this country, if we want to be a constitutional republic. We've got to investigate the investigators. We've got to literally drain the swamp and the sewer. And that brings us to our special investigation. Who is Robert Mueller? Everybody says he's the greatest guy in the whole wide world. Just trust us. Well, members of Congress, the mainstream media, they've been trying to convince you, the special counsel, he is beyond reproach. Sort of like climate change. Oh, nobody disagrees with us. No scientist does. That's not true either. Mueller is the utmost man of integrity. Well, we've been doing some digging, and we found some things you need to know about. And tonight we're going to tell you who Robert Mueller really is. There's a brand new report from investigative reporter Sarah Carter. Robert Mueller's career has been anything but impeccable. One of the worst stains on his record comes from his time in Boston, where he served as assistant U.S. attorney and acting U.S. attorney in the 80s. During this time, notorious Boston mob boss Whitey Bulger, he was actively engaged by the FBI as an informant. The relationship between Bulger and the Bureau was wrought with nothing but corruption and criminal collusion. This might explain why he's best friends with Andrew Weissman. Now, Bulger's FBI handler, a guy by the name of John Connolly, actively covered up for many of the horrific crimes that were committed by Bulger and his associates, including one instance where 4 men were wrongfully framed and convicted and imprisoned for decades, all for a murder it turns out they did not convict. Sounds like Andrew Weissman's record. The men were ultimately exonerated. A judge awarded $101 million in damages, but not before 2 of the men actually died in prison. Robert Mueller was the U.S. attorney in charge while these men were rotting in prison, while certain agents in the FBI under Mueller covered up the truth. Oh, let's see. Andrew Weissman was excoriated by 2 judges for withholding exculpatory evidence. So what did Robert Mueller know about all of this? When did he know about all of this? Now, these are questions and issues I'm sure you have not heard from your friends in the liberal media. Some members of Congress, the media, they're praising Mueller, the pillar of honesty, the pillar of virtue. They've never investigated him. They're actually just lying. It's their talking point. All the information we're telling you about is right there, right in front of the liberal mainstream media, in their faces, but they purposely ignore it because their destroy Trump agenda, that goes above all else. And the reason why is because they want Mueller to carry out this witch hunt, even if there is no evidence of collusion. And now that we know more about Robert Mueller and his past, his current moves now make a lot of sense. Mueller didn't appoint in this particular case. What did he appoint? A merry band of huge Democratic donors. He didn't do it by accident. And appointing Andrew Weissman to be, quote, his pit bull, according to the New York Times, that wasn't a mistake either. Weissman's the type of prosecutor that Mueller wants to try and bring down President Trump with. Weissman has withheld exculpatory evidence in multiple cases. He put the accounting firm Arthur Andersen out of business. Tens of thousands of people lost their jobs. That obstruction of justice case was later overturned by the U.S. Supreme Court. Oh, how often do we hear about 9-0 unanimous rulings? That's what happened. Now, Weissman also robbed 4 Merrill Lynch executives of their liberty. He sent them to jail for a year. That conviction was overturned by the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals. And if you're surprised by any of this, you should not be. Robert Mueller has an agenda. He's carrying out a witch hunt. This is par for the course. All right, here with more on this before we get back to the Austin serial bomber, we have Sarah Carter and civil rights attorney, criminal defense attorney David Schoen. Fox News contributor Sebastian Gorka stays with us. All right, Sarah, you did the deep dive on this. I'm actually annoyed at myself that I didn't do it myself sooner. But the information that you have put together shows exactly why Robert Mueller picked all Democratic donors and Andrew Weissman, who has one of the most atrocious and corrupt records of any lawyer that I've ever heard. Let's go into what you found.
Well, this is exactly the reason why we see there's every reason for President Trump's attorneys to fight back on this, and President Trump as well, because if we have found out, and what we have found out is the foundation of the special counsel is built on unsubstantiated evidence from a dossier from a foreign agent, Christopher Steele, paid for by the DNC and Hillary Clinton. We have to ask ourselves, what is this special counsel for? And then when you look at the past, Sean, you see what Mueller's cases, going back to the anthrax case, going back to the 80s here with Whitey Bulger. Remember, Whitey Bulger, this mob boss that you very eloquently listed out this story, disappeared for 16 years. It wasn't until 2011 that Mueller's back. Now he's the director of the FBI, that they finally get Whitey Bulger. But you know what? Mueller never answered any of those questions. Those questions that you asked at the end were the same questions that reporters were asking in Boston, that people were asking in Boston when the FBI was basically, all of this was swept under the rug. It was probably one of the most historically cases of corruption in the FBI in history. And this is what's really so important about this. I know David Schoen can explain in detail what happened here, but this really haunted Boston for some time. And it shows, that Mueller's a man. I mean, right or wrong, we got to tell the story about Mueller, whether people think he's the greatest special counselor, to be investigating the president or not. We're not hearing all the facts about Robert Mueller, and I think it's about time we start hearing the facts about him, Andrew Weissman, and the other people that are on this special counsel. This is the most
corrupt team I've ever seen. This is the most incestuous, corrupt. This is now beyond anything I've ever seen in my life, and it's now also coming to light. David Schoen, you have done a deep dive into who Robert Mueller is. Every single person in the liberal media. By the way, you're going to see we are awaiting that news conference on the Austin serial bombings. Geraldo's on the ground. We'll get back to him in a minute. But David Schoen, I want you to explain your deep dive. Everybody says, oh, he is beyond reproach. That Whitey Bulger case does not sound beyond reproach to me in any way, shape, matter, or form.
No, sir, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. Weissman and Mueller are what we call the number 1 and 2 on the hit parade of having supervised the single 2 most corrupt scandals in FBI history, and it was on their watch. Mueller in Boston with Bulger, and Weissman in the DeVecchio case, in which also 2 men sit in prison today, Mr. Sessa, Mr. Arena, having been wrongfully convicted with these kinds of tactics. There are several remarkable things here. The parallels between Mueller's conduct and Weissman's conduct with respect to corruption, remarkable. It comes full circle when Mueller approves attorney's fees for the corrupt FBI agent in Weissman's case.
David and Sarah,
yes.
I apologize. We are doing a deep dive into the into the special counsel Robert Mueller every night this week. But we've got to get back to the serial bomber that's going on in Austin, Texas. We're awaiting a news conference on the Austin bombings. Geraldo is on the ground. We'll get back to him in a few minutes. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, David Schoen. Back with us now with more information is the Texas Attorney General, Ken Paxton. Mr. Attorney General, we're awaiting this news conference. What have you heard?
So I know that there's been a lot of reports about this being a copycat, this one tonight at the Goodwill. The people on the ground that I'm talking to, some of my law enforcement officials, are telling me that that's not accurate, that they really believe that this is the same bomber and that he's continuing to yes, it's the same bomber. But I'm telling you, every time he does one of...
So that means I'm sorry, that would mean 4 confirmed bombs in a day today.
Yep. So we're pretty convinced that it's the same bomber, that the reports about it being a copycat are not true. But remember this, every time he does one of these, it gives us more information about him, and we're getting closer and closer. I think we are going to stop him soon.
All right, Mr. Attorney General, thank you. That information is important. Geraldo is on the ground as well, and we're going to get back to him in just a second. And Manny, let me ask you, I mean, when you hear that, yeah, everything that we've been hearing, you know, it turns out this would be 4 bombs in a day. He's accelerating these attacks. What do we glean from that?
Well, we glean that he wants the attention. He wants the attention. Law enforcement did a very wise move yesterday in asking the bomber himself in the media, please come forward, communicate with us. That would be great if he does that, because they can glean from that and be able to get a profile of who this bomber is. Furthermore, the more bombs he has, the closer we're going to get to him.
Let me go to Sebastian Gorka. Dr. Gorka, you've been very patient. We're going to ask you about Robert Mueller. Obviously, this is taking precedence. You just heard the Attorney General of Texas. It looks like, in fact, they do believe that what was, for just a short time, reported as an incendiary device ends up 4 bombs in a day. How do you interpret that? You have studied terror your whole life.
Well, if this turns out to be the same bomber, it means somebody that's very unusual. They're not sticking to one recipe. They're not sticking to one device. We have explosives delivered by hand to somebody's house. We have them used through a parcel service. We have the tripwire, and now potentially this incendiary device as well. That is an incredibly rare combination of techniques for one individual, one team to use. But Sean, the most important thing, and all your viewers need to remember this, they may see this individual. Why? Terrorists scope out their targets. They surveil them. They collect intelligence. Never go close to anybody who's suspicious. But if you see something, immediately report it to your local authorities.
That's how we got the Unabomber after 18 years, Dr. Gorka.
That's exactly how we got the Unabomber, because somebody recognized the style of writing used in that manifesto, and they said, hey, you need to check out my brother's cabin in the woods. That's how we got him. So always be aware, as law enforcement says, have your head on a swivel, be aware of your surroundings, and if you see something, don't be afraid. Tell the authorities, because you could be saving lives.
Well said, Dr. Gorka. Let me go to Dan Bongino. What do we glean, Dan, for years in law enforcement? 2 things changed today. Number one, it seems to have accelerated. We have 4 in a day now that we're talking about, based on what the Attorney General of Texas just told us. Then you have a little switch, and the switch is now they're using a tripwire, a different device. What do you glean from all of that?
Sean, I don't think this guy or guys or team of guys cares about getting caught. I think that explains away the accelerated pace of the attack. Obviously, it seems at this point that these explosive devices were prepared all in advance, and it explains what would be like an extinction burst pattern of behavior. Get them all out there. You know you're going to get caught. You know cameras are ubiquitous. Get them all out there, put them in the system, and then this is what happens. And that would explain, I believe, the accelerated pace of the attack. I really don't believe this guy cares one bit about getting caught. The Unabomber was different. He had secreted himself in the woods and didn't want to get caught. He would have kept this going forever. I don't think that's the case here. I think he understands this guy or guys, they're going to get caught quickly, and that's why they did this all in advance and got this. And the one question, Sean, one more thing. How many of these are still out there? How many of them are in the system? That's the question.
That's such a good point. We go back on the ground in Austin tonight. Our own correspondent, Geraldo Rivera, has been there talking to the people on the ground. We're expecting a press conference also. And I don't know if you heard, Geraldo, but the Attorney General, in fact, said what was tweeted out that you reported, that this was just an incendiary device at the Goodwill place where they found this tonight. He said he believes, and law enforcement is telling the Attorney General of Texas, that they believe this is, in fact, connected to this Austin serial bomber.
That makes all the sense in the world, Sean. I was baffled by the certainty of the Austin Police Department in dismissing what just happened behind me as something that was unrelated. It seemed illogical, even though the device, let's assume the device may have been a different footprint, let's say, than the other three discovered just today and those that have terrorized this town since the 2nd of March. But that makes all the sense in the world. The AG, the top law enforcement man in this state, speaks with great authority. I have no doubt. I think it's one freak who, I don't know if I agree with my brother Dan that he wants to get caught. I think he wants to kill, he wants to maim, he wants to be notorious, he wants to dominate the news cycle. I think that more than the Unabomber, this guy reminds me of the Joker in the Batman movies, Sean. He seems to me the kind of person, I'm assuming it's a man, it seems to me the kind of person who wants to inflict maximum pain and maximum terror while getting maximum notoriety for himself.
Yeah.
Now, as I said at the top of this program, with the surveillance cameras and the unexploded bomb and the fact that they have a geographic, if not a fix, they've got a a loose circle where they think they may be from. For him to do this in a deposit bin of the Goodwill, I come back to that because it sickens me to my guts to think that somebody would go to a Goodwill and in the deposit of donations,
you're attacking who? People that are serving other people, or people that probably are in deep need in their life that need help. Can you get any lower than that? You really can't, Geraldo.
It really, Sean, you and I have been together 17 years covering terrorism. This son of a bitch is a terrorist. I don't care by any definition. He's trying to paralyze the capital of Texas. He's trying to send a message out to the people of the United States and the free world. We've got to just cheer on law enforcement, the ATF, the FBI, the Texas Rangers. They're all here. The local cops. They've got to go through that surveillance video. They've got to be, and I'm sure they are, tireless.
That's what I want to know.
Hundreds of them now swarming the Capitol.
How in this day and age, Geraldo, and I think this is the most important point that you're making, with surveillance cameras that basically are everywhere. Everything is surveilled in this day and age, and yet we have not been able to get him. Going back to the timeline in this particular case, it starts on, what, March the 8th? And he has been active. And he's been most active today, because we had the two bombs earlier today at the FedEx, one in Austin, one near San Antonio. One explodes, one doesn't explode. Then you have this incident tonight at the Goodwill. I would think that there's got to be some camera, someplace, somewhere that captures this guy putting these bombs out there.
But he's diabolically clever, Sean. Now, remember the first two, they think that someone just placed the boxes on the porch and two innocent families brought them inside. Then he used the local delivery guy. Then he went to FedEx. Now it's the Goodwill. It's almost as if any place that has a cardboard container is in peril in and around the capital city of the great state of Texas tonight, Sean.
Let me go back to the Attorney General of Texas, Attorney General Paxton. Let's go back to your sources. For a brief moment tonight, we were told, oh, this is only an incendiary device. They don't believe that this was connected to this Austin serial bomber. But in fact, your sources say you believe it is connected.
Yeah, they say that there's nothing to indicate that this isn't the same person doing it. Now, obviously, we're concerned about copycatters. That can happen in anything like this. But everything that they think, look, it's all somewhat speculation, but everything that they've looked at tells them that it is exactly the same bomber.
It didn't make sense what an incendiary, I'd never heard that term before. And when I looked up what incendiary device is, I'm like, okay, that sounds like something that could be...
It's a bomb.
It's a bomb.
That's what it is. It's a bomb.
Yep.
And it was put in a goodwill place. And the escalation of bombs indicates to me that now he's acting really reckless. He wants to dominate the media. And I wouldn't be surprised he will get caught because, like you said, there's cameras that are ubiquitous, especially in the goodwill, especially in FedEx. How did he FedEx that? He had to have a credit card, pay, put it somewhere. They must have video on this person. But more importantly, just like they caught the Unabomber, somebody has to know something.
Yeah,
they always know something, and nobody says something. Somebody has to know what this guy is doing.
I agree. And Dan, from your law enforcement experience, I think Manny's dead on here. And that is that this guy now, he seems to want to be in the news, the acceleration that we have going on here. But that probably gives us more opportunities, as scary as it is for the people of Austin, to at least figure out who this might be.
Yeah, Manny used a word here that's key, Sean, reckless. You know, when we were investigating presidential assassins, you always put your mind in the mind of this guy. If you're a bomber looking to stay out of jail right now, you don't engage in this accelerated pattern of attacks. You're exposing yourself. Why is he doing that? I believe because in his triaging of goals, goal number one is chaos. And goal number one is to inspire terror. I don't think he wants to get caught or else he would surrender. What I'm saying is, I don't think he cares. I don't think he's worried about winding up in jail at all, whereas some others genuinely want to stay out of jail.
Manny,
this
you wanted to jump in?
goal, guys, is chaos.
Yeah, now, what makes this guy extra dangerous is his recklessness, and he will be caught in due time. My concern is when they zero in on where he lives, that entire place will be booby-trapped. And my concern is
for law enforcement.
For law enforcement going in, and for the neighborhood.
Tripwires, now he's up to a little more sophisticated.
So but when they find him, my concern is he's going to want death by cop. He's going to go out in a blaze of glory, literally and figuratively. But he's going to try to take as many first responders.
It is a great reminder because I know law enforcement, they're so committed to their jobs. Broward County was the anomaly. And that is a good admonition and a good warning to all our friends in law enforcement, the FBI. And remember, I've always have the greatest respect for rank and file, not these guys in D.C. that have abused their power. That's a small portion, the 99.9% that put their lives on the line every day. Let me, if I can, go back to Dr. Gorka. When you see an acceleration like this, it seems like they sense, this guy is sensing they're closing in. He wants to create as much havoc, terror as possible. Do you also think that there's something about him seeking some type of notoriety?
The most important thing when you're analyzing is not to mirror image. Don't put your thought processes onto this person, because this person is either a psychotic, he's either a terrorist, or he's somebody who doesn't think the way we do. I think Dan's absolutely right. If this is one person, then this is a series of attacks that's been prepared for a long, long time. You can't deploy...
Let me interrupt you. A good friend of mine, Steve Molsberg, a friend of mine, sent me this thing in the Daily News that just broke, that social media, there's a user that's claiming, and it's written in the Daily News, that is literally claiming that to be behind the bombings that have terrorized Austin now in recent weeks, vowing he won't stop until he becomes as prolific as the Zodiac Killer. Again, I can't confirm this. It is in the New York Daily News. My intention is not to kill people. I'm doing this simply because I want to watch the world burn. Someone using the handle Austin Bomber posting on one of the prominent websites today, and the anonymous user making a string of disturbing messages in which he is comparing himself to the Zodiac case, and that's the serial killer who never... was identified or caught, though he'd murdered at least, 5 people in California going back to the 60s, early 70s, if my memory serves me well.
If this is the same person, or if this person just continues to accelerate their attacks, here's the good news, Sean. He will make mistakes, and he is going to expose himself to more vulnerabilities, whether it's on camera, whether it's just a very, very vigilant cop or security guard or just Joe Public, and he will be caught and he will be neutralized.
Let me go back to Geraldo on the ground in Austin tonight. Geraldo, that's an interesting point. You and I have read the Daily News every day of our lives. What are your thoughts?
I don't know. The Zodiac Killer was never caught. You know, there are all kinds of theories with the Zodiac Killer.
That's what the Daily News says.
That is possible. This guy is spreading enough terror. There's no doubt about that, Sean. Both these residents of the great state of Texas are veterans. There are lots of veterans in the area. Tell me your name, and you work for the VA now, and tell me why you brought that up.
My name's Martina Batterton. I'm a nurse over there. I brought it up just because we have a lot of veterans in the area, and a lot of them are former Vietnam veterans. Iraq, Iran have gone through explosions and bombings and everything, and if their PTSD is heightened, to make sure if they have any issues or anything, to make sure they come over to the mental health clinic and get some assistance from their doctors as well.
So you're fearful that the post-traumatic stress might kick in, given the fact that you've got bombs going up right here at home?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It can intensify a lot of memories and dreams and PTSD issues.
And how are you feeling about the fact that the capital of your great state is now under attack?
Well, this is appalling to us because we're not used to this in Texas, and we've had our episodes, you know, back through history, kind of like Charles Whitman, University of Texas Tower. But to have these bombs going off, not just in Austin, which has been unfortunately frequent, but in Schertz and San Antonio and around the state.
It's horrifying, and it's terrorizing, Sean.
All right, Geraldo, I know Geraldo will be on through Laura Ingram's show tonight, and stay with the Fox News channel. Let me go back to the Attorney General of the great state of Texas. Again, our thoughts and prayers go out to, I love all my friends in Texas. Governor, I frankly wish I lived there with you a lot of times.
Come on, join us.
I'm sorry that you're all going through this. I want to get back to, this is now an acceleration. I don't know if, I look at the Daily News. I used to deliver the Daily News. I've read this newspaper my whole life. If that turns out to be a social posting, that would be a big clue for law enforcement.
No, absolutely. And I don't know if that's accurate or not, but I do, as I said earlier, I do think we're getting close. The fact that he's continued to accelerate is only providing us more information to track him down. So I do not think this is going to go along like the Zodiac Killer. We are going to find this guy, and I think we're going to find him quick.
I hope so, sir. Manny.
If this Daily News article is correct, and this is our guy, it's great that he opened the dialogue, because we get to know more about him, his motives, his
like
profile,
the Son of Sam case.
like the Son of Sam case, like the Unabomber
case, the manifesto got him.
And if it's a fake person trying to be this guy,
arrest him.
Well, it'll obviously arrest him, but maybe it'll flush out the real guy by saying, no, it's not him, it's me, and these are my real reasons. So this might be good for law enforcement from the investigative point.
Last thoughts, Dr. Gorka.
Look, our thoughts are with the people of Texas, and our federal agents and the people of Texas will get this killer.
Dan Bongino, last call.
You know, Sean, he's going to screw up, and he's using anti-disturbance devices, which are inherently unstable, and he may wind up taking himself out soon if he screws this up.
All right, thank you all. You guys have been amazing tonight. It's sad news for the state of Texas, our friends in Austin. You're in our prayers. Stay with the Fox News channel, continuing coverage. Let not your heart be troubled. Laura Ingraham is following all of this live next. Laura, I was handing you off better news.
Yeah, thanks so much, Sean. Great show. Good evening from New York. I'm Laura Ingraham. This is the Ingraham Angle. There was another explosion in Austin, Texas tonight, but authorities are saying they have no reason right now to believe that the incident is related to the previous explosions that have the city on edge. We're expecting a press conference from law enforcement officials at some point, but for now, let's go to Fox News' Casey Stiegel, who is live in Austin. Casey.
Laura, good evening. Hopefully we get some clarification at this press conference we're awaiting, because not only have they said that they don't believe this incident that happened back here behind me at the Goodwill store in South Austin was related to the package bombs. And that doesn't make a whole lot of sense because it's not every day an incendiary device goes off at a store. So either the federal authorities who came out and said that, both the ATF and the FBI, they may know something that they don't want to disclose to the public to jeopardize the investigation, but they were able to rule out right away that this didn't fit the hallmarks of the other incidents, or it is possible that this was a copycat crime. But again, that's all speculation because we simply don't know. Hopefully we can get some clarification soon. But what we do know right now is that one employee at that Goodwill store was injured. Apparently there was this incendiary device, according to the ATF and the FBI, and it went off, injuring the employee. So we do know that right now, and Goodwill Industries of Austin has sent out a message on social media saying that until further notice, all Goodwill stores in Austin will remain closed. There's been some local reports that that incendiary device was in a box that was right next to the donation bin, and when the employee went to check the donation bin, that's when the incendiary device went off. This, of course, Laura, on the heels of 5 explosions that have rocked Austin, Texas since the beginning of this month. Then tonight, the ATF also confirmed that a bomb was found inside a package at an Austin FedEx distribution center right next to the international airport here in Austin, but they found it before it went off, and they did a controlled detonation of it at that site. So that was after a different package did explode at another FedEx distribution center. That one was outside of San Antonio, and it happened early this morning. That was explosion number 5. Number 4 was Sunday night. A bomb with a tripwire was planted near a fence in an affluent Austin neighborhood. 2 men in their 20s driving by on bicycles tripped the wire, causing the bomb to go off. They were seriously hurt. And explosions 1, 2, and 3 happened earlier in the month, and those came in the form of packages that were left on the front doorsteps or front porches of homes and went off when the person touched or opened them, and 2 people were killed between those 3 blasts at homes in East Austin. And then you had number 4 Sunday night. So number 5 at the distribution center. So police say this shows them that the incidents are getting more sophisticated, and they think that if it is the work of the same person or persons, that they say it's unprecedented. So a lot of unanswered questions tonight, but I can tell you this is a city on edge. Not to be trite, but it is a city on edge. People just don't know where the next call will come from. So that's the latest right here on the ground. Laura, we'll keep you posted just as soon as we learn more.
Okay, Casey, thanks so much. And what 3 things does law enforcement need to know to narrow down who this suspect is, who it might be? Well, let's go to the experts. Terry Turchi is a former Deputy Assistant Director of Counterterrorism at the FBI, and Terry directed the federal task force that went after the Unabomber. And Fox News contributor Mark Furman is a retired LAPD. He joins us now. Both of you, this is like surreal by the moment. Things are changing. We might have this news conference, but Terry, let's go to you.